If we're live yet. Yeah, I think we are, as a matter of fact. How have you been?
I've been great. It's been a great summer. Did my usual bicycle adventures across the country. Of course, last summer of 2017, I did Astoria, Oregon to Bar Harbor, Maine, 4,500 miles with four other friends. Just finished a book. It's called Old Men Bicycling Across America. The subtitle is A Journey Beyond Old Age. And it's actually a book for anyone over the age of 65 that's a baby boomer, 60 to 60, anything over 60 to 80, actually. And it takes you on almost a bicycle version of the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. So this could be Zen and the Art of Bicycle Maintenance. And it shows people in the last part of their lives that they want to live an epic moment and an epic journey, especially one that powered by themselves into the bicycle touring world. This book has got it all there for them, and I've got essays from all of the different writers who've definitely ridden across America, coast to coast or around the world, and they write essays on why they do it. And boy, some of them are extraordinarily inspiring. And at the end of the book, I have two major chapters that show anyone how to buy a bike, what kind of bike to get, all of the ramifications of touring, and then checklists and packing lists and camping. I mean, I literally show anyone how to do everything and be a successful long-distance bicycle touring adventurer. So yeah, anyway, that's coming out in January of 2019, just in a few months. So pretty excited about it. And this summer I did Astoria, Oregon to Bar Harbor, Maine. This summer I did Bellingham, Washington it was called Blaine, Washington, on the border of Canada, down the west coast to Tijuana, Mexico, which is about 2,000 miles. And backpacking trips and other travel. So anyway, it's been a great summer.
So how does your heart feel while you're pounding across the nation? Does it feel pretty good?
Well, for a guy that's almost 72 years of age, I'm 6'2" and 185 pounds. I stay pretty lean and clean.
Yeah.
So my heart is very strong. My legs are very, very good. And, I take care of myself. So I've been a vegetarian my whole life, actually a vegan vegetarian. And so I stay in really good shape internally and externally. And one thing I've found, if you want to keep playing at the high level that I like to play, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, bicycling, mountain climbing, and all that goes with that, river rafting, you have to take care of the body temple. And so I take care of the body temple. I actually work out 6 days a week.
Jeez.
I run a bicycle, lift weights, and I swim a half mile every day, 6 days a week, and I do 100 sit-ups.
Wow.
So at 72, I'm in better shape than most 30-year-olds.
Of course. And when you're doing those long bike trips, how do you get enough food and water?
Well, I have it's called a mountain expedition touring bike, and it's a mountain bike set up for touring. And I have a gallon of water on the tubes at all times. If I get into places, in desert areas, I can put 2 and 3 gallons of water on the bike, so I get plenty of water at all times. And I have food 3 to 5, even 7 days of food. I can pack in 10 days of food if I want to or need to. I did that when I spent a year in South America on my bicycle, traveling from Venezuela, Caracas, Venezuela, to Tierra del Fuego, Ushuaia, which is the bottom of South America, then back up to Falls de Iguazu on the corner of Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil, and then out to the coast. And that was... at times, I would have to have 10 days of food with me, always having a water filter, of course. But yeah, and then I've circled Australia on a bike, and sometimes I would have 5 gallons of water because the roadhouses were generally 120 miles apart, or 200 clicks, 200 kilometers.
Jeez.
And so you have to have water because there's no traffic on the perimeter of Australia, so you better have water with you or you'll die. So I've been pretty prepared, And a lot of my books, like Bicycling Around the World, Tire Tracks for Your Imagination, that has chapters on how to bicycle or backpack. I mean, I honor all forms of travel because I'm a backpacker. In fact, last week I just finished a big backpack trip. So the key is preparation, and I've got pack lists and checklists and show you how to camp and everything you need to know. And some of my books, like How to Live a Life of Adventure, The Art of Exploring the World. All those can be found on my website, howtolivealifeofadventure.com. So if anybody's interested beyond all the serious stuff that I do, there's the playful side of me, and the playful side of me keeps my sanity in this particularly duress and stressful world of the harsh realities that we're facing. So anyway, the two sides of me are just like a yin and a yang. Go out and have a great life. I mean, go have fun. Go toast your friends. Go packing. Go hiking. Go canoeing. Go bicycling. Go mountain climbing. Go anything and do everything that turns you on. Paint, macrame, whatever is your passion that calls you. I always celebrate that in my books. And so that's beautiful. And then the serious side of me is trying to save America from its impending fate. From overpopulation driven by immigration. So I keep a balance, and that's the key. And it's always a pleasure because every time I come on your show, what I hope to bring is the facts and the figures and the solutions of what we must do as a country in order to survive the 21st century.
So are you going down to welcome the caravan into the United States then?
Right. I was down on the border this summer. Twice. I was in Texas on the Rio Grande. I waded into the Rio Grande there at Big Bend National Park, and I traveled up through Arizona. And of course, I was on the border again in August after bicycling from Canada down to Mexico. And it's really horrible what's happening on the border. There's so much trash. There's literally millions of tons of trash. The average illegal migrant that comes across the borders, and there are about 1,500 of them per night now. That's how many are crashing the borders. That's 1,500 per night. That's documented by quite a few agencies, U.S. Border Patrol. They get through. There's just no way to stop them because there's no impediment. But they leave 8 pounds of trash. So if you just figure 1,500 people leaving all of their backpacks, their clothing, their junk, their baby diapers, you name it, soiled baby diapers. There's just millions of I don't know how many tons of trash, but it's unbelievable. It's destroyed the mountain or the desert ecology all the way from Brownsville, Texas, all the way to San Diego. And why our government and why the senators and congressmen don't stop what's drawing them, and that's jobs, by arresting all of the employers of illegal aliens who make so much money off these people. There's no serious attempt. There's no E-Verify. It hasn't been passed in 20 years. And it's so frustrating. So to see it like I've seen it, it would strike horror in your heart to see what's happening to your own country. And it's being facilitated by your own 535 congressional critters up there in Washington, D.C. that refuse to do anything to stop this thing.
So is George Soros behind this caravan?
There's a lot of speculation on who's behind this thing. But whomever is behind this thing has got a lot of money. They're coordinating with the Mexican elites. And they're coordinating with all of the, food, and they're coordinating. I don't know where they're all doing their morning constitutionals and all their business, but my God, it must be an unbelievable human waste problem. I personally, I'm a backpacker, so I can tell you this: that if there's 4 or 7 or 12,000 of them,
wow,
and I've seen the pictures, they are, and then there's another caravan forming again, I think in Honduras or El Salvador. I think it's El Salvador. And the tragedy is that, I've been all through, Mexico and Central America, and the poverty is great. But what's really the tragedy is the Pope goes in there, and these are predominantly Catholic countries. In fact, they're totally dominated by Catholic auspices. And the Pope, of course, says don't use birth control. And so, all of El Salvador and Honduras in the last 40 years have doubled their populations to such an extent that they can't even feed themselves, and they remain in so much poverty. And so the only way, like them and all the rest of the world that's been overpopulated since 1965, they want to come to these first world countries that chose 2 children or less per woman since 1965. And so they think that they can come here, and then all of a sudden that'll solve all the problems. But of course, it doesn't solve any of the problems, because these countries continue to multiply and overpopulate themselves. And so there's no end to the line. I don't know if I've said this before, but I will repeat it to each person listening. That third world, it adds 83 million new babies net gain every year.
That's
So
incredible. My
83
goodness.
million. You can look it up, the UN population studies, but the third world adds 83 million every year net gain, give or take a couple thousand. But when I was, I'm almost 72. When I'm still a young man at heart, and I get to play like a young man at heart because I do take care of myself. But when I was in college in 1965, the world population was 3.5 billion. 3.5 billion. And then by 1970, when I graduated from Michigan State University, we had Earth Day, and the number one issue on Earth Day was human overpopulation. So all the Western countries went to 2 children per family with birth control. But the rest of the world, the third world, screamed ahead and added 4.1 billion people in the next 45 odd years. And so right now we're looking at 7.6 billion people on the planet, 7.6 billion. And they're not going to stop there. Third world countries continue having 6 and 8 kids. And that's going to equal to 1 billion added every 12 years and over 3 billion added by mid-century, so that we'll go from 3.6 billion to well over 10.1 billion. Well, no one's talking about it.
Can I
Mark?
let me run something past you, because I did a little math, and
Yeah.
I want you to check me here on this and give me
Sure.
some feedback. You know how you always hear about people say, well, you can fit all the people in the world into Texas.
Oh, I love that one.
So I did a little math here. I said, if you have 7 billion people in the world and we put them all in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say 7 billion people get to eat 1 cow in their lifetime, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you got 7 billion cows then, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And when you look up how much acreage it takes per cow, ideally, as a rule of thumb, you should have 2 acres per cow. So that is 14 billion acres. So
You got it.
at 14 billion acres, I did the math on it. It's like 21 million square miles.
Right. Yeah, that whole argument about everybody can live in Texas. I've heard it that you can live they can live in half of Texas with an extra acre of land for their gardens. There's so much myth out there and so much misinformation that it's beyond understanding. And yet people they like to stay with their myths and their misunderstandings. They like to stay with some kind of denial. It's called cognitive dissonance, and essentially that means intellectual denial of reality. And this country right now is in tremendous intellectual denial of reality, because we keep thinking that we can take on the average of 1.2 million people net gain every year in immigration. And that's 100,000 added to our country by legal immigration every 30 days.
Goodness.
And of course, again, you take those 1,500 each night times 365, it comes out to over 500,000 per year. So we're taking in 1.7 million net gain every year that we know of. And think about that. That's where the next 140 million more people will come from that are going to land on the United States here in the next 32 years.
So tell me about the mentality of the left. They seem to be ruled by emotions more than anything. They get real emotional about us, not feeling like we need to help these people. So
That's exactly right. You can be really emotional, and at the same time as my old friend, Dr. Albert Bartlett, who has an hour-long lecture that he gave 1,600 times in his life, but he's a physicist who turned into a brilliant human population expert in his later part of his life. He died a couple of years ago. And he said, well, the human race does not understand the exponential growth factor. And the exponential growth factor is a factor that means that humans keep adding net gain 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or 6% each year. At some point, they simply run out of planet, or they run out of carrying capacity. Mm-hmm. And so places like, and you see all this soft pedaled across the media in this country. It's the reason that I don't get on 60 Minutes. I have impeccable credentials, but yet 60 Minutes hasn't responded to anything I've tried with all my books that I've sent them, mm-hmm. and my letters and press releases for 20 years now. Same thing with NPR. They won't touch it. Leslie Stahl, Steve Croft, Scott Pelley, Oprah Winfrey. I tried to get on Oprah Winfrey when she was big time. They don't want to talk about it. They want to avoid it at all costs, because this is America, and it was built by immigrants. But the problem is, of course, we're full. We're in overshoot. And again, the exponential growth factor cannot be sustained. And so one way or the other, whether it's 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, the United States will be in so much overshoot that it will not have enough water to water all of the citizens and the animals and the irrigation of the plants. It won't have enough energy to harvest anything or plant anything, and it certainly won't have the resources to maintain what we're doing. And we won't have enough, certainly won't have enough environment. How is everybody, can everybody just, I bet everybody listening to this broadcast just can't wait to see another 140 million more people added to this country, so you can be stuck in even thicker gridlock and bigger brown cloud and air pollution and more acute water shortages. And of course, the cost of everything continues to go up as the population goes up, because the demand for everything is more acute. And I'm stunned. I have been speaking like this for 30 years. I've done, I guess, close to 2,000 radio interviews across the nation. I've befuddled audiences with the facts. And of course, I've been called names too. And one of the things that people, oh, he's a nativist. Oh, he's a xenophobic. He's a racist. He's all these things. And what I really try to bring to all audience is facts are not racist. Facts are not xenophobic. Facts are not nativist. Facts are facts. And you either deal with them or you ignore them. And if you ignore them, in time, they won't ignore you. And that's the tragedy right now. Now, this summer, going through all of California, and it was I think it's about the 8th time I've bicycled the length and the width of California 8 times now on a bicycle. I'm in the middle of these fires. I'm in the middle of these unbelievable water shortages. And then I get in the middle of all this gridlock traffic. And Mark, why do people want to keep doing this to themselves? Because California is 38 million people. It adds 655 people a day. Get that number. It adds 1,655 people a day. And that's documented by capsweb.org. That's the demographic fact. And 98% of those additions of 1,655 people per day is by legal and illegal immigration. I mean, and now we know, since the last time I talked to you, that it's not 11 million, because illegals in this country. The Yale research study came out. It's 22 minimum, as high as 25 million illegal aliens in this country who crashed the borders, and they're now just melding into the society without any, seamlessly, essentially, because we're not upholding our laws. And so California is about to add 20 million people. And California's got so much poverty. I mean, and I got to see this. 11,000 people in San Francisco are homeless. Human defecation on the streets. I mean, I went right through it this summer. I got to see it. It's ugly. It's god awful. But then you get to Los Angeles, and 90,000 people are homeless in Los Angeles, and we can't solve it. There's no solving this thing, and it's only going to get worse because essentially we're importing the world's poorest and most and least educated and completely unskilled and completely cannot do anything but essentially make babies and live on welfare if they can get welfare. And so if we don't stop this caravan of whatever it is, 4,000, of 7,000, 12,000, it means another caravan is going to come on behind it. In a piece I just did last week or this week, there's about 68 million people that are refugees around the world, but the United Nations predictions are going, there's going to be over 100 million here shortly. And so none of this immigration is solving anything. And the key I've always said is to stop all immigration into America and help them in their own countries. And even the Dalai Lama said that.
Well, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
These people are actually being driven up here on trucks and cars. So somebody's behind this.
Oh, yeah. And so is it Soros, as you asked, or is it, some big money people, and what's the final prime directive here? Well, I can tell you this, and every person listening to this broadcast, I hope you feel the certitude, the certainty in the numbers that I'm talking about. I hope you understand the consequences. I do hope that you go to the websites that I suggest so that you can empower yourself. And that is this. You can bring all these people over here, and we can there's only two things that are going to happen. We keep bringing all the poor and the uneducated and the unskilled into this country. They all go on welfare. They all get all the free stuff, but it's not free. You're paying for it. You're paying for the anchor babies that over 300,000 of the mothers that come over every year and drop their child here, birth their child, and we pay for it, K through 12, Section 8 housing, food stamps, medical care, you name it. And then, or we can stop it. We can stop it by securing the borders, by E-Verify being passed by the Congress, fine and jail all of the employers of illegal aliens, and finally get law and order working in our country. Because if we don't, then we will have anarchy in every small or large aspect. Does anybody out there know how many dollars are stolen out of shops, mercantile shops across the nation every year? You have Mark, do you have an idea how many millions of dollars?
Not even vaguely. I have no idea.
$52 billion.
What?
$52 billion. Yeah.
That's blowing my mind.
Just look it up. Just put it on your Google and look it up on the internet and ask, shoplifting in America costs for per year $52 billion. B as in boy, $1 billion. Who shoplifts? Poor people, poverty people, people that are third world. They shoplift. That's how they operate.
Gosh.
Well, that's what's happening to our country, and you pay for that. We have Mexico. Every time there's over 15 million Mexicans in this country illegally. Over 10% of Mexico. Mexico has about 130 million people, or about 125 to 128. 15 million are here illegally, and they send $28 billion a year back to their home countries. But other immigrants, both legal and illegal, remember this summer, the Somalians up there in Minneapolis, they were sending $1 million in cash in suitcases back to Africa.
Wow.
They scammed $100 million of welfare through the EBT, the Electronics Benefits Transfer Card. They scammed $100 million U.S. taxpayer dollars there. And the Somalians are not intelligent whatsoever. I mean, they do not have very big horsepower, brain power. And they stole $100 million because they found out how to do it. And they got caught finally. But you and I are paying for that 100 million that got sent out. Well, think about that. Over 120 billion dollars a year gets sent to other countries out of our country because we simply don't stop the cash transfers. I tell you, the more you know about this, the sicker it makes you. And that's why it's so frustrating, because I could bring all this information to Fox News. I could get it in front of Tucker Carlson. I've tried to get on Tucker. I've tried to get on Jesse Waters. I've tried to get on
Tucker.
I've tried to get on Tucker.
You can't get on his show?
He won't touch it. He gets a bunch of nutcases on there, but he does somebody that can talk and knows what they're talking about. In the case of this issue, he doesn't want to touch it, because I've sent him literally dozens of press releases and subjects that we could talk about on what's coming down on America. Same with Anderson Cooper. I try to get on Anderson Cooper. He won't touch it. I've tried to get on Oprah. She won't touch it.
Well, Anderson Cooper, I think of him as just part of the deep state. I mean,
well, that's right. He is part of it. But I try to get everybody a chance, because I need to educate not only liberals and libertarians and independents and conservatives. Everybody needs to know the facts that I'm bringing out on your show here today and have in the past.
Do you think the deep state is completely in control of our media?
There's no question. I would say this. There is an entity that controls the media. And that entity, whether you want to call it the deep state or you want to talk about the big money pockets, the high corporations that want to make sure that the immigration is not stopped, because the one thing that the high corporate capitalists want is more consumers. And they don't care, because I found this in all my travels around the world. For those of you who don't know, I've traveled on a bicycle across 6 continents. I've seen what happens in all these third world countries. I see what happens in the second world countries. I've seen what happens in first world countries. The big money interests, you can call them the Illuminati, you can call them the Bilderbergers, you can call them the bankers, you can call them the biggest capitalists out there. They don't care about the environment. They live in gated homes and they think they are completely immune to the consequences. And so they want more money by having more people, because every time you add another person to the United States economy, you've got 3 meals a day, you've got jeans and shirts, and you've got cars, and then you've got houses, you've got apartments, everything gets built. And so the country continues to flourish. It's called a Faustian bargain. Faustian bargain is selling your economic soul for the moment and all the luxuries thereof to end up in a collapsed economy, in a collapsed state, in a collapsed environment with a Hobson's choice.
Can I share something real quick? Because what's happening in Columbus, Ohio, I have to commute into Columbus to go to work. And it was really weird. The past 4 to 6 months, I've been seeing all over the place these real cheap apartments being built. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they get built, and then the Caravan comes. This was planned ahead of time. And I can't tell you how many beautiful woods were taken down.
Oh, yeah.
It's just horrific. But can you believe that? You're right. They've planned this. These elites, they planned this whole thing.
Well, I would ask this for each listener today. How would you like another 10 million people added to Ohio?
No.
Yeah, that's what you're going to get.
Oh, my goodness.
You're absolutely going to get another 10 million people. You got to understand, there's only 50 states, and most of us can't live in Alaska, and most don't want to live in Hawaii because it's already crowded beyond belief. In fact, Hawaii and the Hawaiian Islands are kind of getting like the Canary Islands. But anyway, I bring this up. 50 states and 140 million more people. How many people are going to settle in those 50 states? Well, just divide 140 million by 50. Guess what, folks? Ohio very well could house another 10 million people.
Just astonishing. It's beyond belief. Do you think a civil war is going to come eventually?
I personally think with all of the Muslim immigration into this country, and the Islam is a political, religious, economic system that is counter to everything in the United States. It's totally without any foundation in Western thought. It is the most barbaric system in the world. We all know that. And yet we keep importing all of these Muslims here. So we're going to see more Detroits. We're going to see more Minneapolis, Minnesotas. We're going to see more no-go zones. We're going to see more conflict with Muslims because they try to install Sharia law. This November the 6th, 90 Muslims are running for public office, all the way from senator, U.S. senators to House reps to mayors to governors of states. Michigan, they had the Muslim, I don't know if he's still running, but he's running for governor right there in Michigan. I'm not sure he got voted out in the primaries, but you're seeing more Muslims going for bigger. Yeah, 90. That you got that right. 90 mayors, city council members, governors, every political office, Muslims are running because they want to install Sharia law. That's their prime directive. That's their single issue.
Now, back to these illegals. How do they get driver's licenses?
Again, you've got like guys like Schumer. I mean, Schumer was one of the instrumental guys that got Muhammad Atta. And you all know Muhammad Atta and his 15, 16, 17 henchmen that commandeered those planes. They got illegal driver's licenses because they were illegal aliens and overstayed their visas because of Chuck Schumer of New York City. And you've got others. I mean, California, Jerry Brown is absolutely counter to the U.S. Constitution. So is Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California. Same thing in Hickenlooper from Colorado, which I have to put up with. John Hickenlooper has broken the law as a governor by making Colorado a sanctuary state.
Wow.
And when he was a mayor, Denver, he was a sanctuary mayor for Denver. Now Michael Hancock is a mayor for Denver, and he's a sanctuary, and there's 240 other cities in America that are sanctuary cities. So they're all they're all in violation of federal laws, and yet they're getting away with it because nobody's coming down on them. And if anybody doesn't know this, actually, the Islamic religion is counter to all Western thought and all U.S. government. It's absolutely a violent Sharia law is violent beyond belief. They even have videos out showing a husband or any man how to beat his wife or his girlfriend with sticks and with whips and so forth, and not mark them. That you can look it up if you want to look it up. Look it up. They have videos how to beat your woman without leaving marks. That's how violent. We now have, and I want to have everybody understand this. We got 3.5 million Muslims in this country. Every one of them's looking for Sharia law. Not the women, but the men are. Women have no say in Islam. But anyway, we now have an average, and you can go February the 2nd of this year, 2018, Ed O'Callahan, assistant district attorney for the Department of Homeland Security, stated at the White House press conference, and I watched it, an average 23 to 27 honor killings in the United States every year. That means a Muslim kills his wife or his daughter. And in fact, you all know that right there 2 years ago in Rocky Point, Ohio? A Muslim father shot his daughter twice in the head while she slept because she was wearing jeans, and he didn't like that.
Oh, my goodness.
We now have 23 to 27 honor killings every year in the United States, which is a complete assault and battery. But that's how the Muslims operate. They kill their women. Well, 20,000 a year get killed worldwide under Islamic rule in Islamic countries. You can look it up. Just look up honor killings, Islam, United Nations report, and it'll tell you the average 20,000 women lose their lives. That's 54 a day are killed by their husbands for any reason they want. They want a second wife and they can't afford it. They kill the first one.
Jeez.
We now have 500,000 cases of female genital mutilation here in the United States. Do you want me to go into detail of what female genital mutilation is? I can tell you right here on the air if you want.
Well, let's get to that in a second. I've got another question. So,
sure.
Of these 27 or so honor killings, what happened? Were they prosecuted? Did they?
Yeah, they're getting prosecuted. I mean, one guy in New York who was doing a TV show in New York to show the softer side of Islam, he was beating his wife so regularly that she filed for divorce to take the 2 kids. And what did he do? He decapitated her.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, he decapitated. Then another guy in New Jersey cut off two guys' heads and cut their hands off and then threw them in a grave. I've got the stories. One guy in South Carolina, he shot his daughter. He shot her because she was wearing jeans. He was a Pakistani Muslim.
Unbelievable.
Any kind of Muslim. Another guy out in Arizona ran over his wife and his daughter and killed her. Her name was Noor. Another guy in Moore, Oklahoma, cut the head off of a fellow worker because she wouldn't convert to Islam. He was trying to cut the head off of another worker, and they shot him in the head by another worker before he got the knife to her throat.
Oh, my goodness. So,
yeah, that's what's going on in our country. This is a first world country, but this is what's going on in our country.
And I know I brought this up before, but isn't a civil war inevitable under these circumstances?
Yeah, and here's what's going to happen to us from my 72 years of experience around the planet. And I've been in civil confrontations around the world of people trying to fight for their lives and so forth. If we don't stop immigration into the United States, we're going to import so many third world people with third world mentalities and worldviews and religions and cultures and lack of education that we will simply continue to degrade. We actually used 40 years ago, the United States used to have an average IQ of the American citizens of 100. That's why we've been a very successful society, because 100 IQ is a pretty reasonable. In fact, China, it's 105. That's why they're so powerful. But we're now down to 98. And the reason is we've had so many people come into this country with lower IQs. For those of you who don't know this, Africa, the average IQ in Africa is 68.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So you can you imagine we bring in all these Somalis and the Sudanese and the Ethiopians and the Congolese and all that. They all go on welfare because they simply have no skills beyond driving a car as a taxi driver and or sweeping a broom, cleaning up as a janitor, simple, redundant jobs. And I want to say this, it's not their fault. It's simply their condition. Right. It's our fault for bringing them to America because we're thrusting them into a highly dynamic society that is literally being run by computers, which you've got to have, a brain to really work in this world today. And they're a fish out of water. They're a people out of a country. How could I equate that? How about you as an American citizen? Let's just put you on a plane and send you over to Somalia and see how you survive.
Yeah.
How long would you survive in Somalia? I doubt you would make it a week. And think how you would be ostracized by the Muslim religion over there, and see how you'd be ostracized because you wouldn't have a toilet. You'd have to do your business on the soil every day. That's why Africa right now, and I did a piece called The Deadliest Birth Rate for All Humanity earlier this year. And Africa has, you think let's immigrate all those poor starving people from Africa. Well, Africa has 1 billion people right now, but by 2050, which is 32 years from now, it will have 2 billion people, B as in boy. And before the end of the century, Africa will have 4 billion. That's the UN population projections for Africa. India, we immigrate all these Indians over here. They're taking over all the motel chains, and they're chain migrating all of their people over here. And they have 1.25 billion people. They're growing by close to 20 million net gain every year because they don't use birth control very much over there. And so they're going to top out and even exceed China and hit 1.55 billion. So they're going to add over 350 million people in 30 years. That's how fast they're growing.
I remember, I believe you said that roughly 4 million people are born on the street and die on the street in India.
Yeah, it's more than that now. It's probably up into the 10 millions plus.
That's astonishing.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, let me bring this to your attention, Mark. And I just looked it up. Go to the Indian Express. How many Indians don't have a toilet, don't use a toilet? 60.2% of Indians don't have a toilet. They don't have an ability to use a toilet, so they defecate on the land or in the water or in the streets. That's why when you travel through India, the cities are just stench because urine is everywhere and defecation is everywhere. And then the cows are crapping everywhere too. So that's why everybody wants to leave India. And, I've said this before. People that are open borders people, oh yeah, let's let anybody come over here in the United States. And there's a lot, and Democrats, they can't wait to have everybody come to the United States. They don't understand the consequences. Right now, I would absolutely predict that if you open the borders of the United States and gave tickets out to everybody, for those of you know about diversity visas, we give out 50,000 free rides to America. It's called the Golden Ticket every year. Charles Schumer is a part of that little fraud that happened 30 years ago or 25 years ago. We've got 14 million people lined up to get 50,000 of these golden diversity visas every year. They should be outlawed right now. They're just insane. That's why you've got so many of these people from Africa that just get a free ride over here and they live on welfare the rest of their lives. But anyway, the problem is that if you gave open borders, 300 million Africans would love to move to America right now. 300 million. That's how much misery is over there in Africa. Another 300 million over in India would move here, and another 300 million over in China would move here, because you all know China has 1.4 billion. Literally, another 20 million Mexicans would move to America. And when I wrote this piece, the fact is we could be 1 billion people within 3 or 4 months by letting the borders stay open, because that many people would move to America. So we would be 1 billion people, and now India's 1 billion people. Then China, we would be right up there with India and China. We'd have 1 billion. Anybody out there in the audience today, would you like to have that happen to America? All this stuff just takes your breath away, but that's what we're facing. If you just take it back down to the next 100 million immigrants we've got coming in here in the next 30 years, you should be terrified out of your mind for your kids.
So I'm not confident that Trump is going to stop this caravan. What do you think?
I'm not confident either. I thought 2 years ago when he got to be president, almost 2 years ago, he was going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
But guess what? He's been stopped by judges from letting the Muslims, stopping the Muslims from 7 countries. I think that finally got overturned, so he did. But it was only for 90 days. So the Muslims are still pouring in. And they're doing everything they can. Again, Sharia law, that's what they're working for. And then the thrust of 1.2 million every year has still been going on, 100,000 per month. Over 500,000 have still been crashing the borders. Employers of illegal aliens are still thriving off the cash to these people at substandard wages. And that's still going on. And the people are making more money because all these illegals and all of these legals have to get housing. And so they're being housed, and the houses are getting built, and all these people are getting to live in these houses. So if somebody's making a lot of money, so the bankers and the entrepreneurs and the capitalists and all of the construction crews and all of the machinery is just screaming and making more products, and then of course destroying more environment faster and faster. So we're gonna either stop this thing, Mark, or we're going to degrade this country into a third world country, and we'll all just live at a very lower level of life, a lower standard of living, and a lower quality of life. Or we're going to see tremendous civil conflict between religious Muslims, certainly, because Islam's the only one that wants to destroy America. The Baptists and the Lutherans and the Catholics and the Protestants and the Methodists, they're all just part of America. But I guarantee you, Muslims never incorporate. They never become assimilated. They're simply become a parallel society, and we're going to have a lot of problem with that. So yeah, it's going to be racial riots, and it's going to be civil war, either small civil wars or many of them around, and racial conflict and religious conflict. That's what we're facing. And in fact, my new book's coming out in March, and it's titled "America's Overpopulation Predicament." Subtitle is Blindsiding Future Generations, because we are really going to be blindsiding our kids.
It almost seems to me that some of these real primitive kind of religions, they almost work like a kind of mental illness.
Oh, they are. I'd say Islam is a disease, and it's a virus that once you get it embedded in your head, I mean, how many rational men would like to be able to beat their wife and not show the marks? How would that do for your intellect? How would that do for your spiritual being? How would that do for your emotional balance? That you were given the right by the Quran and this Muhammad, who was a brute, just a warlord of a brute who cut people's hands and heads off at whim. He raped, he was a pedophile extraordinaire. He was a brute. He was a beast is what he was. And so how would you like to be able to beat your wife? How would you like to have your wife as property? How would you like to put her in a burqa for all of her life? How would you like to make sure she couldn't ride a bicycle, that she had her genitals cut out of her? Because all Muslims get the little girls before the age of 9 get all their genitals cut out of their genital area. I can describe it exactly if you ask me to. You've got women as property. Gays are killed summarily. Gays are killed in Islam. You don't dare show your head as a gay in Islam. You will be killed. They still decapitate people over there in all these Muslim countries. They cut their heads off. They behead them also. Saudi Arabia is just brutal. And so you've got that. And then a woman doesn't have any choice of religion. She doesn't have any choice of a man. You can't fall in love in Islam. You are assigned a husband. How many of you out there, women, why aren't the feminists in this country absolutely screaming? I've seen pictures of these women in these marches in Washington, D.C., and I'm a Muslim. You're a Muslim? A woman would choose to be a Muslim here in the United States? You got to be out of your cotton-picking mind. This religion absolutely abhors free thought or free speech, and it absolutely does not allow free choice of religion. Once it dominates, everybody is an Islamic convert. And the prime directive in the Quran is, I'm quoting here, convert or kill all non-believers, unquote.
And in the Muslim religion, you can have multiple wives?
Four. And how they're doing that over here right now is they're bringing one wife over and the 3 are family members. And we're paying for them. They're all on welfare. Go to Detroit, Michigan. You can see it. I mean, it's all over the place. Go to Minneapolis, the same thing. These people do not give up their culture. They don't give up their practices just because they came to a first world country. They simply create parallel societies.
So it sounds like we need to revisit capitalism as well, because capitalism is allowing this to happen, right?
That's true. You know, I've worked with Brian Check, and he wrote the book Throwing Coal into a Runaway Train. What we need to do is create responsible capitalism, and it's called steady state economics. In other words, steady state economics is when you use the amount of resources to match the amount of recovery in a finite amount of land with finite amount of those resources. And that, of course, that requires a steady state population. So in the end, in order to have a thriving and viable and sustainable society into the future, you've got to have the usage of the non-renewables and the usage of the resources balance out with the pollution levels and balance out with the consumption levels, and that's steady state economics, which also requires a steady state population. And now the good news is that Canada has a steady state population because the women have been averaging 2 kids per woman since 1970. The same is true for Europe. Same thing is true for all Western countries, and the same thing is true for the United States. We already chose that in 1970. But that Teddy Kennedy guy and Howard Metzenbaum and Jacob Javits, they're the ones that passed that 1965 Immigration Reform Act. And that has been the source of literally the destruction of the United States of America. And if allowed to continue, it will destroy our country, without a doubt. We're not going to survive another 140 million people.
You know, it's interesting because corporations always want to get larger and larger, and that doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, again, it's that kind of a mindset. Now, all you're hearing from me today is logic, reason, facts, and numbers. Anybody can, I guarantee you, these numbers, I've got them right in front of me. I've got all the facts. I've got all the sources. You can look them up. And I've had people, I just can't believe that. $52 billion a year. Look it up. It's in the support facts and 52 billion goes out in stolen mercantile goods every year in the United States. I forget how many millions that is a year, but it's horrific. Well, I've had people write me and say, my God, I had no idea. California is adding 1,655 people every day. Yep, that is a fact. What CAPSWEB, CAPSWEB.org, just look it up, and they're going to add 20 million people within the next 30 years. And you sit here with these numbers and facts, and you go, people are incredulous. I suspect the reason that some of the big names don't want to have me on TV because they can't argue with me, because I've got the facts.
Exactly.
And so everybody wants to argue emotions. Well, we got to help all these poor people. If these people get in, these 4,000 or 7 or 12,000, whatever the number is, there's going to be another 10,000 behind them. Notice that during Barack Obama, we took in 65,000 unaccompanied kids, and then another 40,000 after them. So that was 105,000 that we became responsible for, and our taxpayers dollars are paying for. Well, guess what? Mexico literally is going from its current 125 million. It's going to go up to 140 million. It's going to add another 15 million easily within the next 30 years. So there's going to be more desperate people. El Salvador, Honduras, any of those countries, they're going to double in population too. So there'll be more of these caravans coming up here. But again, the rest of the world adds 83 million more new babies every year. So, can you imagine Europe's being overrun now by over 2 million migrants from Africa and the Middle East? Guess what? Do you think they're going to slow their birth rates down? Nope. What did I just say? Africa's going from 1 billion to 2 billion in 32 years. I know. It's a good thing I keep my sanity by going on my bicycle, or I'd lose my mind with all the facts that I know about this.
I think we got about 5 minutes left. I just wanted
Sure.
to give you a little warning, Frosty. But if you look at South America, if these people would really start to think and reorganize themselves, there's some really nice places in South America. They got potential. They don't even come up here. I mean, hell, they got great weather and all this. What the hell's going on?
I've traveled all through South America. I spent a year traveling from Caracas, Venezuela, down to Tierra del Fuego. I've seen all and back up to Rio. South America is beautiful. The people are beautiful. Chile is a fantastic country. Argentina could help, needs a little help, and certainly Brazil needs a little help. But they're all beautiful countries. Colombia is a beautiful country. Venezuela, of course, is a basket case because they went towards socialism. What is, and even Africa is one of the most incredible countries in the planet.
Sure.
But if you don't have the intellect and the ability to harness all of the good things, because illiteracy is the driving force across, whether it's Haiti or Mexico or Honduras or certainly all of China or all of India, all of Africa, all of Indochina, illiteracy, and they're having, again, 83 million babies every year. How do you educate that many people? Because it's even more than that, actually, all the new babies. Actually, the world adds another 157 million new babies every year. But about 57 million of them are fill in the slot of the 57 million who die every year. So it's well over 137 million new babies every year are added, and 83 million is the net gain. So you just can't educate all those people. And in the little time I've got left, and what do uneducated, illiterate people do? They have more babies. Some of the things you can do, there's now almost 10 million people in numbersusa.org, NUMBERS, USA.org. I would ask everybody to get the 5-minute video, Immigration, Gumballs, and Poverty, and send it to all of your friends and all of your networks so that we can educate the American people to what the hell's coming. And the second one is Immigration Off the Charts. It's a 10-minute video showing you not only the 140 million that we're going to have added to America by immigration, we're going to double our current 330 million, 625 million if we don't stop.
Thanks, Frosty. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Mark. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.